what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed. The light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome everyone to Whole Soul Mastery and Whole Soul School and Foundation's joint podcast today, where I'm going to be talking with Louise Klein and Becky Grabski. They are two incredible people who teach, heal, inspire, and empower people to find and live their authentic voice and their authentic self-expression. My name is Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, intuitive, and a messenger of our powerful journeys that we engage to live our whole soul mastery, our experience of wholeness, and the greatness of our authentic self-expression. And I'm so excited to be connecting with you, Louise and Becky, today. As I was thinking about a topic for our conversation, and I tune into sort of the frequencies on the planet, many of us, people who would be listening to a podcast like this, we can see that there's so much change flowing through our personal lives on the planet. And we are called to listen for how we want to surf those waves. How are we navigating the surfing of those waves? And I feel like there's so many things that are changing, right? In a typical podcast, I would introduce Louise Klein and I might say all of your credentials and all your certifications and all the things you've ever done, like a resume. And I could do the same thing for Becky Grabski, right? And all of those letters that you might have after your name, or certifications or trainings, or all the things that we have done in a 3D world where we say, my name is Marie Mohler and I have my bachelor's in this and my master's in this. And that becomes our identity. But to me, the truth is it's who you are. And in the new world that we're moving into, vibration and energy and frequency, that's what we might think of as our business card, right? That's who we really know that we're finding each other through resonance. And we don't need all those degrees and those letters and the typical forms of introductions. So I think people listening to a podcast like this would be people who are somewhere in their spiritual journey, whether they're just beginning, whether they're somewhere in the soup of human experience and they're facing a lot of challenges, whether they're riding the high of a wave and feeling pretty fabulous, and they're looking for a podcast that can inspire them and give them new kinds of inspirations to think about in their journey. I think we're going to be having a conversation today, and with Whole Soul School and Foundation, my nonprofit, our tagline is where the conversation is the education. We are surfing frequencies. Those frequencies are experiences in our lives, but we each get to choose how we empower those frequencies, how we give form to those frequencies, or how we release ourselves from the form, from those experiences, if that's not what we want to be experiencing. So I want to welcome you, Louise, and you, Becky, to this conversation today to be talking about the ebbs and flows of the human experience right now as people continue to surf waves. And if we continue with this water metaphor or the ocean metaphor, we all know that there can be gentle waves, right? You can go to the beach and it's pretty calm. And you can also go and there can be storms and the waves are choppy and the undertow is strong. And there's even rip tides in the water. And we're all living through times like these where change is churning in our experience. And we're invited to grow and we're invited to maybe surf in new ways. So now, just with that introduction, let me just say Louise has a background as being a nurse. You were a nurse for many years, Louise. And she's also a pretty amazing feng shui coach, feng shui teacher, but this is more the essence of you. It's not like the resume of you. And that's what we want to come through in this conversation today. And you're so many things, Louise. You're an artist, you're an intuitive, you're an empath, and you have many gifts that you're giving to people, and through the many life experiences that you've had, which is some of your best teaching, right? Your best learning has been through your life experiences. But you also have this mastery in those fields of healing and empowering people. And Becky, you are a psychic counselor, and you offer psychic sessions with people. You help people who've been through some pretty traumatic experiences. I think you're a bit of a grounding wire. You help to ground people in the storms and the challenges of their life experiences. And you help people who are in the experience of a significant transformation or a transition in their life. So you help people, you're like a bridge. You help walk them from one experience into the next experience of their life. And I think a lot of people are looking for those bridge mentors, somebody who can stand for them, hold space with them, and be that grounding force while they feel like their emotions and their experiences might be all over the place. It's amazing how, when we're living our authentic gifts and we're being who we really are, how much we can help and touch another life by simply being the gifts that we often overlook. And this is why I think that a lot of our most precious gifts and our biggest talents are the things that sometimes we take for granted, that don't necessarily go on a resume, because it's at the level of frequency. It's at the level of authenticity. And most people don't write resumes with those two things in mind. But I believe where we're all headed in the changes on this planet is we're moving into this time where we're learning how to surf change. We're going through transitions and transformations, and we're looking for as much grace and ease and positive energy as possible. So I want to thank you guys first for joining me. And I want to invite you to think about this question as people are navigating these storms and navigating change. I think it's hard. It would be hard for me to imagine that some people are in a static place in their life and that they've been there for years. We've had so much change going on in the world, with even the weather events that we're seeing with big storms, but also the COVID storm that swept the planet. It's called out a lot of change. And maybe that's something we want to talk about, is like, when you have faced some significant changes in your life, or when you've helped other people with change, what's one of the things that helps you to center when you feel like the rug gets pulled out from underneath of you, right? What do you guys think about that?
Well, this is Louise. My connection with Becky has really, and by the way, Marie, I just have to say that introduction was, I mean, we could end the podcast right now and it would be complete. It was just so amazing. I mean,
yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Oh,
she is amazing. She blows my mind. So it's like, okay, yep, we're done. We said all this, nothing more to say. But back to your question, what is the one grounding force when the rug's been pulled out? Well, my rug was pulled out, as both of you know. It'll be 3 years in January with the death of Matthew, my husband. And so the answer to that question is just allowing ourselves to go to the depths of the feeling and not denying it. And, not lingering, not drowning, but having somebody in my life like both you, Marie, and Becky help me, to navigate this, to feel this, to stay strong with it, and to come up like Becky's readings for me. I saw things, I saw visions initially when Matthew died, and I really thought I was making it all up in my head. And Becky has read some things for me. And Marie, you have also said some really positive things to me about my future that have really helped me to rise and to see it wasn't the end. I wasn't going to drown. It was going to be beautiful. And I allowed myself to feel it. And I had help along the way. And I am like not the same person I was 2.5 years ago. because of all of it. And I can honestly say that, as much as I miss Matthew, my life is so different that I could not go back.
Mm.
It has helped me come to this place of that I am not any of the things I thought I was. Yes, is that in my essence? Is feng shui now in my DNA? But it's so much more than that. It is it's about being present in the moment. And I was speaking to Becky this morning, and I was telling her everything that's happened within the last few days. And you don't even have to leave your home anymore. You don't even have to have a business card or a title. It comes to you. And although I don't have a business, a website anymore, I still remember my tagline, designing sacred spaces that awaken the soul. And I've noticed within the last couple of days that the people that have come to me, there was a huge awakening that took place just out of all of us being ourselves and being present in the moment and being authentic and not worrying about what you said or what you didn't say. And shifts can occur from that. So living here in River Bluffs, where I currently live and not on the mountain anymore, has been a real learning experience for me. And I believe everything had to be taken away. My title had to be taken away. The spirit dolls that I made had to be taken away for me to come to this place of, oh, wow, the power is in the moment. And I don't have to do a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There's so much in what you just said, Louise. I just wanted to comment on that because a lot of what you're talking about to arrive where you are now, you had to allow that chasm from where you were, right? And you had to, the key is in the allowance, is that when things are stripping away or things are breaking down to create the breakthrough, a lot of people we know, and I have definitely been part of that cycle of we can resist. We can try and hold on. We can grip. We can hold tightly to things that we know are trying to leave because it needs to make room and make space for something better, something more aligned, something more authentic. And just so incredibly how beautifully with the unexpected loss of your husband, the sudden loss of your husband, I would say, creating this like great, I don't know if you experienced it as an abyss, but this like when you have lived in partnership, in a relationship, in a marriage with somebody for so long, and that creates your rhythms, right? And your own cycles in that co-creatorship that you guys share. I think people can be lost in like, how do you let allowing in with the grief that people experience, with the overwhelm that people experience. And I just want to reflect also to what you said is that you only gain the skills to be speaking from the perspective that you now have, and you, Becky, as well, by living it, by saying yes to it, even if you're in grief, saying yes to the grief. Even if you're in pain, allowing your awareness, of the pain. And someone that I've taken a class with this last year, many people might know her, Lynn McTaggart. She teaches a Power of Eight class, and she's published a number of books. But in the class, she used a phrase called deep truth telling. And when you're doing Power of Eight intentions for things you want to create in your life, you also have to be willing to get really honest and truthful with yourself, because when you're putting together intentions, you're really asking yourself, what is it that I do actually want? Whether that's healing or growing your wealth or a relationship, whatever it might be. And I heard in just your story, Louise, that you shared so beautifully, in the disruption to your life, in the shake up and the quake up of what you experienced in the last 2 to 3 years, was a willingness to deeply tell the truth to yourself on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, maybe a breath to breath basis of what you were feeling in that raw moment. Maybe it's an art form. It's not really a science. Like growth like this can be messy. Emotions and trauma and the things we go through as human beings can be
Mhm.
can be messy. But what's incredible is when you give yourself permission to be honest and authentic and raw with yourself about the truth of what you're feeling. It's amazing how you make room for healing to occur and new things to come in to lead you or guide you or inspire you or help you move through that process to land you where you are now, which is teaching and helping others in a very present way. That, like, if the conversation is the education, presence is the portal, right? That's
Mhm.
the portal where change can really unfold without resistance, in this very beautiful way. And Becky, I think you could probably share some things about people and challenge and, navigating
Hmm.
and surfing that. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So your original question to us was, what do we do when life pulls out the rug from underneath us? And uh, I do have to say that my life experience is one where the rug got pulled out from under me so so very many times as a child and growing up in my younger years, and I really just learned how uh, to realize that just because the rug gets pulled out from under you doesn't mean that you have to fall, and that if you do fall, that you can't get back up again. And it doesn't mean that if you fall you're going to die, or that you're going to get seriously injured, or it could be a trip, it could be and you learn how to roll like a stuntman. They know how to fall out of a building and make it look really bad and dangerous, but they kind of like roll over and get right back up and walk away. And so I think that a couple of different things that come to mind in answering that question is, number one, really allow yourself to know that you have experience. And like for me, it's like I know that I've got experience of being able to fall and get back up again. I've done it so many times, and I think we all have. And so, a lot of times we say to ourselves, oh, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to do that, or I don't know how to get up, or I don't know how to, traverse these new energies. And we have that sort of mantra of, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And so we kind of talk ourselves into the sense of not having confidence and not feeling like we have the capability of dealing with what it is that we have to deal with. And I think that when we can really kind of look at that and say, you know what, if we really look at our lives, we can see how many times we've fallen and how many times we've actually gotten back up. And we can say, you know what, I'm a lot more capable than I give myself credit for. And so, part of it is just recognizing that the life experience that we have is actually a gift. All of those times of falling down, that has given me the gift, so that now in this stage of my life, when something happens, I can just take a breath and just sort of be still for a little bit and say, okay, well, this is the ride. Another waves come in and it'll go right back out, because that's the way of the ocean. And so you just sort of you learn how to surf, you learn how to maneuver. And one of the ways that I personally do it is that whenever anything happens, I literally just stop and I become still. I bring my attention down into my body and into my heart. And I don't just stop in my heart, but I keep reaching down until I reach that essence of who I am, that pure essence that is untouched and unsullied by any trauma or drama of whatever has happened in this lifetimes or past lifetimes or whatever might happen in future lifetimes. It's that steady, beautiful, calm place that doesn't move depending on whether there is a storm overhead or not. And so I go down into that place and I remember, oh, that's right. This is who I am. No matter what happens up there, this is who I am. And this is what matters. I can face this thing that's inside. This part of me is vast. It's huge. It's connected. It's powerful. It's, everything. And so when I see that and I feel that, and then, I then look at whatever's happening in my life from that perspective, then that thing that felt overwhelming, that felt like, oh my God, this is not something I really want to have to deal with right now. You just gain perspective, and it's like, you know what? Everything's fine. It's always been fine. On that deeper level, it's always been fine, and it will continue to always be fine. And so as you look at the situation, you just realize, you know what? I'm not sure how it's all going to resolve itself, but I know that it will. And I know that sure enough, I was breathing before the situation and I will be breathing after the situation. And just get into that calm space and then really just open up to creating space to hold that situation. A lot of times we feel overwhelmed because, we're trying to fit a lot in through a very small hole, into a very small cavity. But when we can really grow our awareness and grow our energy so that it is bigger than whatever the situation is that we're in, then what happens is that situation no longer is overwhelming. That situation, it's smaller than who we are. And we know that as a big being, that no matter what that situation is, we got it. We can handle it. And so, then when you're in that kind of space, it's like, that's when you're really open to receiving, intuitive guidance, and also just receiving from the universe, guidance or help from friends, from neighbors, from unexpected sources. And, soon you find that the situation has resolved itself. And so, there's kind of a whole process there. And I think we've all done some variation, some form of what I've just talked about. But that's what happens for me now more than anything. When something happens and it looks like the rug is being pulled out from under me, I realize it's not actually being pulled out from under me. Whatever this is, it's also a gift. It's a gift of, what can I learn from this? Where is this taking me? Obviously, the universe wants to guide me in a certain direction. And so instead of resisting it and trying to hold on to what was, I'm like, now it's time to just really just be in the present moment and keep looking forward and see what's coming. Because it's a gift. It's what our souls are yearning for. And if we hold on to the old stuff, we can't really see and experience whatever that new thing is. Yeah.
Wow,
So,
Becky. Thank you.
Yeah.
That
was beautiful. And I can attest to that. I, having known Becky and been very close with her in the last 2.5 years, she not only talks it, she lives it. And it's fascinating. And she's helped me to live it as well. We all need each other. Yeah, in these times when we're going through something like that, it's sometimes you feel like you're drowning and it's hard to see the forest for the trees. And Becky has really helped me immensely. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for Becky. And so, I love the saying, life is happening for us and not to us.
mm-hmm.
So we can keep, looking at it that way. It's always not so easy in the moment. But again, going back to holding sacred space for each other, in times like that, it's so important.
It is.
Yes.
It's such a gift to have that in our lives, whether we have that in a friend or a family member, or some people I know, they may not find that listener, that space holder in people in their family circles, because of what they're going through. They may need to go outside of that family circle. And we, I believe wherever we are, we're meant to be. And so if somebody's listening to this podcast, maybe even for the first time, to hear that there are people who have the capacity to breathe for you, right? When you feel like
Yes.
you can't breathe,
Mhm.
to walk with you across the bridge of whatever chasm you're traversing. There are people that this is their specialty. And then some people think, oh, okay, I need a life coach, right? And that may come to mind, or a therapist. A lot of people might think that too. And what I want to invite our listeners to feel today, because it's really all about the feelings. The mind has governed so much of what we've done. Like, anybody can open up, in the old days anyway, an actual phone book and look under therapist or look under coach, and out of the phone book, just cold call and set up an appointment. But we're not doing that anymore. We're actually finding each other through resonance, that electromagnetism, that
Mhm.
put our intention out into the universe, and it's listening for that perfect match. And when I heard you speaking, Becky, and you, Louise, so brilliantly about people who have journeyed the highs and the lows, and we all still journey those times. It's not like once you've gained some of these skills that we're completely done with any lower vibrational experience. No, that could happen to any of us. But
Mhm.
what's really beautiful is if people can really feel what you just shared, Becky, and what you shared, Louise, and feel and take that in and say, that's the kind of person that I know can really feel me, hear me, and hear the me that's in here. That's that ember that you were breathing to get in touch with, Becky. You can be
Mhm.
breathing with them to help them find that ember too, if they can't find it. Because there are times in people's lives where they might even say, okay, they said to take a breath and look inside, and I can't, it's elusive. I can't even find that. I
Yeah.
feel so knocked down. Um, and it's a gift when you can
Mhm.
connect with people who are healers, whatever their titles might be, whatever they might call themselves. But I feel like in that vibrational resume, that vibrational seeking of somebody who can actually go into some of that darkness with you and just hold space in this beautiful way, where love is the foundation of the work, right? Where
Yes.
that, like, namaste type vibration of I am another you, or is that in Lakesh? To me, they mirror each other, but that the divine in that person that feels anything but divine in that moment. It's very powerful to feel that, to acknowledge that with the two of you on this call, and to also acknowledge that with other people, because there's a lot of healers and therapists to choose from in the world. And but not everybody goes and is capable of processing the deep end of the well, right? The deep end of the ocean of the emotions
Mhm.
that we can feel. And I think in my own experience, I can echo what the two of you have said, is that when I went through my really like catalyzing awakening journey, I couldn't find anybody really from this world who could help me. So that's when channeling began for me, because I needed otherworldly support. But people listening to a call like this, if you're not a channel yourself and you don't feel called to learn how to channel or connect, or if prayer isn't quite enough, you need some complementary services. This is what we're talking about, is it's by frequency. I shop my groceries by frequency. There might be, I don't know, 100 apples, right, in the bin,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
know there's one or two apples that are meant for me, right? And I feel with my hands which one is meant for me. And I'm kind of intuitively asking that question. I've done it so much for so many years. My energy field already knows when I put my hand out, I'm listening for the one that's meant to come home with me. But that's
Mhm.
just talking about shopping for apples. You could apply the same thing when you're relocating. If you need to find a house, or you want to buy land, or you're trying on a new job, we're learning how to become much more vibrationally attuned to how everything feels. How does the healer I'm working with feel? How does the home that I'm living in feel? That's all that brings in your expertise, Louise, is that how you design the sacred space to awaken the soul. I mean, my house still needs some help from you at some point. We'll get there. But, I live in kind of the artist's mess, if you will. So it's a constant creative environment, but it's really important. I think we're really talking about the seeds of the true creation here in this conversation, that everything is at the feeling level. It's at the vibrational level. And when you say, Becky, when the rug gets pulled out from underneath of you and you take that breath, there's a vibrational knowing that consciously breathing like that is going to give you perhaps some otherworldly oxygen, like prana, that can help breathe into you and make space where there wasn't room before for the exploration you're about to, this quest that you're going to go on to tap into the deeper part of you that's bigger than whatever challenge that's in your life. And it's really, I think it's just so beautiful to be having a conversation about the feeling level and the frequency level. And I want to ask one of you guys a question in a minute here, but I just want to bring in another podcast I just posted in the last day or two with Terry Cole Whitaker, who she was a speaker and an author and a presenter. I think she kind of opened up this spiritual renaissance in the 70s. Okay. She was sharing these messages. And I just podcasted with her in the last few weeks and posted it in the last couple of days. And we were talking about, the topic was relentless enthusiasm. That's her 7th step in an 8 steps to spiritual and earthly riches. But in the course of that podcast on relentless enthusiasm, it just came through her. I watched it happen, was talking about feelings. It's the feeling. It's not your mind. And even emotions are feelings that run through the filter of the mind. And so it's just interesting that in this conversation today, I feel us also really spending some time in the frequencies of the importance and the power of our feelings and a vibration at the purest, rawest, clearest level before we start to filter and add all the ego's belief systems and everything else about what it thinks that our feelings are saying. Right. This is also what like true healers, whether you're an artist and you help people paint and you do some art therapy, whether you're doing feng shui in somebody's home, whether they're coming to see you, Becky, for that, with serious, significant traumas, we're listening for frequency, the needle in the haystack. That's the frequency, the apple in the bunch that is meant for you. And
absolutely.
Yeah. I wonder if you guys want to comment on that.
I'd like to comment on that, Marie. It brings up for me, the feeling. We're all very feeling beings. And the more we experience these deep feelings, the more we can allow ourselves to feel. But in this soup in this messy kind of soup that we're all in, the way the world is right now, sometimes it's hard to discern what is yours and what is not yours. And so that could be a topic for a whole other podcast as well. But it's about being clear, being able to look at your own shortcomings or your own judgments or your own biases or beliefs, so that you can be clear in what is yours and what isn't yours.
So it's interesting. So Louise, I'm so happy you said that, because just today I was on a call with a client, and their mother is in rehab from an elderly lady who fell and broke her hip, and she is not responding well to the rehab, and and instead of going into assisted living afterwards, she's probably going to end up going into nursing, and then who knows where from there. But the daughter who is on the phone with me is like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. She's just not responding. She doesn't want to, get up. She doesn't want to do the rehab. She doesn't want to. And so, one of the things that we talked about was, what was hers to do and what was her mother's to do.
Mhm.
And, she's trying to get her mother up and going and, do this and do that and all of this other stuff. And it's like, what your job is to love your mother through this. It's, and this, of course, to all the listeners, every situation is very individual. So this advice that I gave her may or may not fit what your situation is. But in this particular case, what I was telling her is like, your job is to love your mother, and her job is to determine where she wants to go from here.
Mhm.
And so, it's up to her to decide whether she wants to get up or not. You can be inspirational, but the only way that you can do that is truly by accessing your own deepest love inside, your essence, your soul, your deepest place, where it's like your eternal self. And then when you reach that place, then whatever it is that you say to her and whatever it is that you do, it is from a place of love. And it's not from a place of, I'm trying to control the situation. I don't like what's happening, so I'm going to try to control it by making her get up and do the rehab, by trying to force something that may not be the right thing to do, to happen. And so it was just about, being clear, like, what is yours to do here and what is your mother's here to do, and so it was really it was just sort of a beautiful, at first when she called, she was just so beside herself, overwhelmed with the idea that maybe it's, she can't get her mother to she's got a failure to thrive diagnosis, her mom. And so it's like, well, we have to take a look at that. Maybe she knows it's her time.
Mhm.
Maybe she knows and she doesn't know how to communicate that. But all you can do, regardless of what your mother decides to do at this moment in time, is to love her and to be present with her and to be present with yourself and to know that whatever you can do, you will do. But in the end, it is up to her to choose to either do or not do, or to go or not go, to be or not be. It is up to her. And it was just sort of a beautiful release that she had. And when we can be clear on what's ours to do and what's not ours to do, it really relieves the burden of carrying somebody else's weight. And
Mm.
so then you can become more of who you are. And when you become more of who you are, that's when your light can shine brighter and your essence can shine through brighter. And that's when you can make more of an impact and you can touch people in a deeper way. And so, by lifting the burden of making choices for her mother, she now has the ability to just shine this love on her mother and hold the space for her mother. And that in that space, her mother will feel safe to make whatever choice is right for her. And that's the beauty of that. That's the beauty of not holding on to what's not yours to hold on to.
Wow, that's so beautifully said by both of you, really, because you talked about the same concept but from different lenses of what's mine and what's not mine. To me, you guys are talking about also honoring your own sovereignty and honoring the sovereignty of another, right? And sometimes when we're trying to save them from the tasks in front of them and we take on that weight that you're talking about, we
Mm-hmm.
disempower their divine right as sovereign souls to make their choices. And
Exactly.
all of this still though it's I don't know, there's like vibrational nuances, and humanity is unpracticed at even knowing itself as an energetic being, and this being an energetic universe. People like you and me on this podcast right now, We know about that. The audience listening to that is probably somewhat aware about this being an energetic universe. But in many respects, the larger humanity has kind of been unschooled. They've lost the learning about things like this. And we have to reclaim this language of making conscious choices, looking vibrationally at the things in our lives and the choices we make and the feelings we have about those things in our lives, and trusting the sovereignty of others and ourselves. And when we start focusing more on ourselves, what's mine to do and what's not mine to do, kind of thing, it's starting to live back in the level of vibration. It's starting to live back in the level of self-empowerment and that authenticity again. And maybe as we round out this podcast today, I have two questions, and these could seed future podcasts, so be forewarned. But when we're talking about this then, and people are in all different levels of consciousness right now in their lives, what do you think? I want to speak in the duality of this question. My first part would be, what do you think is the biggest block to people's allowing in their feelings, allowing in this deep truth telling, allowing in this authenticity? What do you think is, for you, like, what do you think for yourself or in the experience you've had as healers is one of the biggest blocks? And then I can ask it again, but the flip side then of that dualistic question, what inspires you? Right? We've talked about like breathing and grounding and going to our tools, but what inspires you, whether you're down low or you're having an okay day, but that you portal in to like that prana, that life force of being a creator being. And when I ask that question, what blocks people from allowing in the good feelings and this authenticity and this truth telling? And then what also inspires us to live our best light, right? I think that is the rub of the times we're in, right? Dealing with the blocks and seeking the portals into that open level of authentic and fully expressive living.
Mhm.
So I'd like to, as far as the blocks, it depends on the individual, of course, but a lot of times, with people who have not lived a deeply spiritual life, and all of a sudden they're in the midst of this crisis and they're having a spiritual moment, and they don't know how to handle it. They've lived life in the mundane world, and they haven't given themselves permission, or they just haven't had the experience of living in their spirit very much. And so a lot of times they just simply don't know how. They don't know what it means, and they don't know how to access. They haven't had the experience necessary. And so for those people, to have people like us, or the many other people out there that can help them, teach them. So I think having podcasts like this is important, so that people know that when they are in a spiritual crisis, that there are resources available to show them how to go inside, how to do that. Then there are the other blocks where we think it's like, oh man, I'm doing it, I'm trying to go inside, but I can't, because I'm just feeling this other thing, and it's not feeling very good. I'm not feeling very good about this. I'm feeling crappy about this, or I'm feeling too much resentment, or I'm feeling too much anger, or I'm feeling too much whatever. And the thing that most people are trying to do is to try to get away from the resentment, and try to get away from the anger, and try to get away from whatever that not pretty feeling that they're feeling. They want to get away from it. They're turning in the opposite direction and trying to find the good. The thing that most people don't understand, with probably some exceptions to the listeners of this call, but the way to find that good feeling is actually to go into the challenging feeling, whatever it's resentment or anger or sadness or betrayal or whatever it is that you're experiencing. It's like you have to be able to feel that as fully as possible and move into that and question it and feel it and witness it and get really into it, because the only way that you're going to find that beautiful feeling that you're trying to find is by going through and out the other side. There is no other way.
There's
and so
no way.
yeah, so that's, to me, teaching people how to do it, and then having people understand that what they're running away from is what they actually really need to be walking into. And people don't want to do that because it's scary as shit to go and face whatever you think the demons are on the other side of that. Because we think that when we go into our dark places, that there are these big dragons that are fire breathing, that are going to annihilate us with one breath. And like, oh my God, I don't want to die. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to feel that pain. But what happens invariably is that when for me and the work that I do is like, I hold the space for these people to walk into these dark places. And invariably what they find there isn't a big monster that's going to eat them alive. What it is a small child that is fearful, that is curled up in the corner of a forgotten room, feeling neglected and alone, and just wants to be seen, just wants to be heard, just wants to be loved. And when we walk into that room and we see that child, it's like all of a sudden our fears melt. And all of a sudden we connect with that child and we love that child and we embrace that child and we hold that child. And then we realize that that child is a part of us that got left behind many years ago. And as we hold the child and as we just embrace that child, we don't try to do anything other than love it. We allow the child to be or do whatever the child needs to be or do, whether it's being silent or whether it's crying or whether it's not trusting you because it's been a while since they've seen you. They're not really sure what you're there for. And so it might take a little while, but once that child feels the love, then that child can get reintegrated into the being of your now adult self. And when that happens, then the now adult self feels much more fulfilled, much more full, much more capable, much, just being more of who they really are, because they've reintegrated this piece of themselves. And it's people are afraid of that monster that they think they're going to find. But when they realize that it's just simply that small child part of themselves that's been left behind and they can reintegrate, a lot of people don't realize, and they're afraid even to see that because they're afraid of what their emotions are going to be. But the fact is that when they allow themselves to feel the emotions and then to have all of them melt away and only have love left, because honestly, when everything else melts away, the only thing left is love. And so when that love is left, that is when fullness can happen. That's when reintegration can happen. That's when strength can happen. And that's when healing happens.
I completely agree, Becky. And my experience with going through what I did alongside with you has been that. So in answer to your question, Marie, I concur with everything Becky said because I experienced it, which brought me now to a very simple place of, what do I want to do today? Easier said than done when you're retired and don't have a lot of things to do, so to speak, but I can easily find ways to murk that energy up too. So I just I get up in the morning and it's like, what does my soul want me to do? Where should I go? And just have happiness in the little things. So it all boils down to that inner child wants simplicity. And the only way we can create that simplicity is having gone through what Becky described. It's not that scary. A lot of times I found myself saying, whew, that was it.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, we often do fear itself, right? And just like how you both just beautifully expressed that. And when you described it in some ways, Becky, as like the dragon, right? That we don't want to look at. But it is true that if we would go into that deep truth telling, if we would just allow the rawness of what we're actually feeling and find a safe space, create a safe space, maybe with the help of a coach or a therapist to create that for us. But the dragon is actually holding the keys. So if you try and avoid the dragon has the key to your inner kingdom that leads you to this place of simplicity that you, Louise, are talking about. And if you never tango with the dragon, if you don't go in there and face what that is and allow the feelings to come up and transmute what that is, it's very hard to recover the key. I mean, it would be very unusual for the key just to magically appear on your bed, right? I think we do have to go into the caves sometimes for the greatest liberation. And I think so many people feel tethered and tired and stressed. And the news, I think, long ago stopped being good news, right? It's just kind of a steady stream of fear that obviously gets a big audience because people want to look, they want to look, they don't want to get into it, but they want to look at it. And then that's programmed us and got us very conditioned that we live every day carrying like sacks of fear around with us of all the things we've accumulated. But if we would just go into those deeper places inside ourselves, we might free that inner dragon. And when we free the inner dragon, it gives us the key to unlock that child, right? That pristine version of the soul aspects and essence of you that has always been there, but garbled and covered up underneath those vines. And it takes, I think it is still fairly, uncommon in our world to have people who are comfortable with the darkness, to help people walk across that bridge and let it go and leave it behind, but transmute it as you go. There's not a lot of people who work necessarily on the spiritual level. And I'm saying this as somebody who did train and get my master's in counseling, but there was so much in many ways that it was lacking because the deeper wounds are at the energetic level, right? If you have a tough job and it's triggering you, you can quit that job, but you'll just take you to the next job, right? It's these layers. It's these deeper layers that aren't just thought forms. They're actually at the level of ether inside us. So it is so powerful when you have people who are very calm, strong, and faith-filled, and they have a lot of fortitude, and they can ground those frequencies for you and even help you, if you need to, put on some armor, right? Some spiritual armor, so you can go in and face the dragon, only to realize at some point that you don't need any armor, but you might have needed somebody to help suit you up, empower you, give you a language, ground the earth beneath your feet with the rug was just pulled out. And you can see and feel that it could be okay. I may be able to get through to the other side of this. And I'm so grateful to have had some people in my life and really some guides in spirit as well who helped me across that bridge myself in a place that seemed impossible to get out of, right? I think that's where some people find themselves, in a place of impossibility. And that's when you need to find a coach or a teacher or a healer of possibility, somebody who knows the expansive nature of you when you've forgotten for a little while.
Yes.
That's what I think.
I completely agree. Yes. Also, I've heard a lot in the past. We teach what we need to learn. I like to think in terms that well, there's all levels of mastery, but if we can walk that ourselves, if we can walk that talk, we're better able to help others, which brings us to a place of, like the feng shui and clutter clearing and of simplicity. Really, we're going to be given a lot of opportunities, I believe, in the next year or two, maybe, and beyond, because the world is shifting and everything's so fast right now. So we're going to be given a lot of opportunities to be able to, feel that, all of that, and go back to simplicity as much as we can. My life
agree.
mission right now. Yeah, my life mission right now is getting up and, okay, what kind of brings me joy? What do I want to do? What am I faced with? And it's as simple as, okay, I'll prepare a meal. My job is to prepare a meal right now for my grandson that lives with me. And I don't care if he likes it. I'll try to make it good for him. I don't care about kudos. I don't care about food karma, although that has really worked out for me because this week was my birthday. And I swear I had 7 people buy me dinner. So anyway, but we don't do it for that reason. But we need to pay attention to, we do good for others and maybe good will come back, or maybe it won't, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're doing simple little things in this energy that bring you some kind of joy without the reward, which brings us back to what we were originally talking about. Yes. Have I studied and practiced and coached feng shui for the last 25 years? Yes. Do I even, is that who I am? Yes and no. It might be in my DNA. It is in my DNA, but that's not who I am. Now I am the essence of that and being the light wherever I am as much as I can be.
Wow. Well,
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly.
And boy, we're gonna get a lot of opportunities. We're gonna, experience a lot of opportunities to be able to do this. And whether people do it or not, I believe if we can step into it, our life will get easier and easier.
We're talking a little bit about alchemy, where we are melting down the fears and the unpleasantness and the challenges and things we want to turn away from and turning it into some kind of gold, some kind of golden experience.
Yes.
But you don't get from one to the other without the incineration process, without the melting process. And I think we are like going to burn away or melt away or clear away those lower vibrational forms that once defined us. And even the things that we've loved about ourselves, maybe in a 3D world where we started, which is the letters, the degrees, the certifications, the what do you do? This is what I do, all the doing, right? We're melting that away because it is most important that we all become our essence again. We find ways to live that again. And it may be as simple as cooking breakfast, right? But where you're present and you're conscious and you're listening, or you're cooking a soup and you're like, is it this herb or this herb that I want to put in and flavor? We're listening. We're being called to listen differently, which is really being called to pay attention. And we're in the old world, in the old paradigm, in the old ways, we were trained and conditioned to turn away from whatever it is we didn't want to think about or know about. And over time, that became very effective because we effectively forgot a lot of things. I think we are in a time of remembering. And remembering means having to see some of the unpleasantness that was created when we weren't so conscious, and patterns that just continue to run when on kind of like a default setting when we weren't conscious enough to manage them. And in that time of remembering, you shift into from being a forgetter or an avoider or whatever that might be for you. We turn and we step into truly being a creator. And we can create in so many big and small ways every day. And for me, that's joy to a soul. is to create, whether that's to take your dog for a walk. You created that. You are going for that walk with your dog, and you co-created that with that being. Or whether it's a, multi-million dollar project. I mean, there's so many different levels and ways that we can create. But the beautiful thing is when we allow it to be simple and organic, there's a lot of ways we create every single day if we'll just recognize that we're doing it. And that
Yes.
means when you are creating and you know that you're creating, you're more in that creative creator role and less of somebody who's in that conditioned state of just coping, just passing time, just getting through, getting
Yes.
by. Yeah.
Yes. So it's interesting. I have this thing that has anybody seen that movie Like Water for Chocolate? I can't remember how many years ago. It's decades ago, but it reminds me of a few times when I cook. That now, if I'm in a mental state and I'm like, oh, I have to cook this meal because I need something to eat, and well, that's one thing. But if I'm in the kitchen and I'm like taking my time and I'm not worried about how fast I'm moving and how long of a time I'm taking, if I'm chopping my vegetables and I've got, the radio on or Pandora or whatever, I'm listening to my favorite music and I'm just having a really beautiful time just being present to my moment. Well, I can tell you that I have absolutely witnessed the difference of when I'm cooking in that sort of mind way or in my presence way, because every time when I'm cooking in my presence way and I happen to be sharing that food with somebody else, like this one time I made a raspberry, I picked fresh raspberries and I made a raspberry dessert with crumbles on top and whatever. And I was just having the best time. And I brought it upstairs to someone who was staying with us at the time. And I said, here, have some. And I was on my way downstairs when I heard this, oh my God, come out of the room. And I'm like, oh no, what happened? So I'm like running back up. I'm like, what? And he goes, this is the best thing I've ever tasted in my life. And I started laughing. And so now it was just, raspberries with a little bit of, probably walnuts or brown sugar, whatever it is I put in there. I don't even remember. But another time was I made this beautiful chicken dish and with mushrooms and this beautiful sauce. And I was loving it and having a great time. And I served it at dinner. And I could see everybody just got silent and everybody was just eating their food. And I thought to myself, does this mean I like it? Or, like what's going on? But after a while, somebody looked up at me and said, this is the best chicken I've ever had in my life. And the fact is that it was just chicken. It was just all the same ingredients that I've used before when, I've served dinner and I hadn't, put that level of presence in my food. And, people are just, say, oh yeah, it's good. It's food. It's good. Oh yeah, let's take, it's just a different level of connection that when we can be truly present with what we are doing, whether it's cooking food or creating a corporation or whether it's walking the dog or saying hello to your neighbor, when we can put that level of presence into whatever it is that we're doing, that it's like shining our light. We don't know how somebody else is going to respond to it, but we know that they may just have a really good moment if we're saying hello to them and we're in that presence. We don't know what that presence can do for them, but if we're not present, you can be darn sure that it's not really going to do much for them. That our presence is
Is the present.
It's the present. It's exactly, our presence is the thing that heals, that gives, that helps, that offers a higher, better experience of whatever, like the food. I had no idea that when I cooked this food and I was just in a happy place, that these people would have these sort of spiritual experiences with their food. I had no idea, but boy, did that teach me. Boy, did that teach me.
And this is the beauty of the simplicity that you were talking about, Louise. That's so great, Becky. Those examples of like how you can spiritually nourish and nurture and inspire and reach another soul by these simple things that came through first and foremost your presence. And I was thinking as you both were talking how this conversation has journeyed from the waves of change, waves, to the wealth, the riches that are inside ourselves that are in the presence. It's like that's where the gold mine is. That's where the grace is. That's where the joy is. That doesn't come from outside ourselves. It doesn't even come from people's reactions to things as much as it does from you feeling good when you're doing the thing, when you're being the essence that you are. And I can feel also that you're saying too, is just the food is a whole other level of octave of flavor and goodness and wholesomeness when somebody prepares it. You can set out ingredients for two different chefs, and one isn't doing it consciously at all. They're just putting the ingredients together and sticking it in the oven. And the other one just takes their time and chops consciously and maybe appreciates the celery and maybe appreciates the onions and is putting love into the food, right, with their presence and their conscious attention. I believe those two meals taste very different, right? You can feel it. You can feel it. I can tell you my animals look up at me because they know that their food is made with love, right? And I home make a lot of their food. And I can tell the difference when I feed them canned food, just as another example of that. So it's not as nourishing. It's not as fulfilling. And this is what we're talking about, is paying attention to like really robust and nourishing and soul nourishing and fulfilling nutrients in our lives and how we give ourselves those things. And then where do we have kind of empty ingredients and empty patterns? And we're navigating so much is being asked of all of us, anybody that's incarnated on the planet, whether you're an infant. It doesn't matter your age. Everybody, it doesn't matter your species either, because animals and the ocean creatures, every being that is sentient is feeling it. I think I've called this before in some of my other videos, a quantum ask. It's a quantum ask of us to be becoming these multidimensional beings again, which is who we are, but we access it through the portal of our presence. And that's where the gifts are. And I think this is a beautiful conversation to bring that into people's heart centers, to really allow themselves to feel it and to feel the difference in a podcast that's talking at this level and other podcasts, which are perfectly fine, but they may be more for entertainment purposes only. Right? This is for entertainment purposes to some degree because it's in social media, but it's really for soul nourishment and soul growth if people choose to be present with us in the feelings and the energies that we're transmitting in this podcast. And so I want to thank both of you for generously sharing, so authentically sharing your experiences, your wisdom, what it's like to come back from low points and challenges and unexpecteds and stand in your power again, stand in the grace of your heart where you freed yourself up, where you are, Louise, to say, what do I want to create today? I think that's a beautiful space for many of us to be, for more people to be in that space where they created room in their life to even ask that question.
Yes. It can be disorienting at times, especially if you're used to being the doer or being recognized for what you did or what you do. So, which is a whole other podcast, I believe.
Yes, I think we have several. In the queue.
Right?
They're lining up quickly. That's what happens. That's what consciousness does. It brings things to the surface that want some airtime, that want some expression time. So that's really beautiful, though. I like being honest, that sometimes it's a really beautiful experience about saying, what do I want to create today? And sometimes it can be daunting.
Mhm.
Either way,
Mhm.
it's for your soul to ride those waves and then make the choices about whether it's going to feel really good, whatever it is, or whether it's going to be overwhelming. And this gets into the level of perception as well. But I think we planted some good seeds for people to get a sense of who you both are and the kinds of creating that you do, the kinds of transformative work you've done within yourselves and you help others through. And I just want to toss it back to each of you. Becky, do you have then, what is your website if people wanted to reach out to you?
Oh, yes. My website is my name, BeckyGrabski.com, and that's BeckyGrabski.com.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
And Louise, you shared that your website is not active right now. Do people find you on your Facebook page on the Wind and Water?
Yes, I'm not super active on that either. My website is in the same state I am in right now. It's in transition.
So
Wait.
I apologize. I'm going to step in here for just a moment. I know, Louise, you just said that you weren't active on your Wind and Water page on Facebook, and that your website isn't up and running right this very second. But for anybody who's interested in feng shui, and anybody who is interested in really shifting the energy of your home, I cannot recommend Louise enough. So as much as I might have helped her, through this gateway of Matthew passing, she has helped me with really shifting and changing the energy in my home, and having me understand what it is that if you have something in this position or that position, how the energy can really shift in the home, and how the home environment can be so much more supportive of what your soul's goals are, and it's just absolutely amazing. And so, but regardless of that, she also has her etheric eye page where she shares her photography, which is absolutely phenomenal. So I would encourage people to just visit both those Facebook pages, and even just to get to know who Louise is, because she is truly a divine spark of light for all of us, and an amazing individual and an amazing person. So please do check them out.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Becky. And just for the record, the etheric eye page is currently not in operation either. So no, I actually had 7,000 people on there, but you know how radical I can be. I was just sharing from my heart, just quotes and photography. And I decided one day I was done with that, and I took it down because that's me. It's like, next. Okay, good. I still have all the photos. So yeah, I'm just in a transition place right now, and it's just about simplicity. So
Well, that's a good place to be, Louise, and open and listening and allowing. And I know when there is a place for people to see your work or experience more of what those things are, I know you'll let us know. We should be on a podcast to be talking about those things. But if people truly desire to connect with Louise, they can either reach out to me. All the links and contact information for me will be below the video. So I can always put you in touch with Louise if you have interest in connecting with her. So both of you, thank you so much. I think we surfed some really, really amazing waves today. I think we spoke to a lot of the human experience in these times. I think we spoke to ways that people can get support if they want a mentor to walk with them across whatever bridge or chasm that they're facing right now. And I just invite people to join us again and look for another podcast from the three of us sometime soon. So thank you both very much for joining me today.
Thank you so much,
so
Marie.
much, Marie. You
Yeah.
are amazing.
Yes.
Blessing.
And I just feel very honored and grateful for all of the work that you do, and the fact that you put yourself out there and you have this podcast, and that you reach the people that you do. It's so necessary in these times. And so I'm very, very grateful for all that you offer and all that you do. So thank you so much. And thank you for letting me be here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And blessings to everyone who are listeners and who add their energy and their light to the awareness and this inner rising that we really spoke about today. So we'll see everybody soon. Blessings, everyone.